Shelley?
Sorry, was I talking that whole time and you didn't hear me?
Yes.
Uh,
What happened to her?
I'm going on and on and on, and you said Shelly, and I looked down and I'm on mute. I am so
That's
sorry.
funny.
Okay, well, let me repeat myself then. For you guys, it might not be so repetitive, but oh, how embarrassing. Thank God you got me finally, because I probably would have kept going on and on. Welcome, guys. My name is Shelly Hughes. I'm with FM Audit, and I'm going to be doing TCO training today. Now, TCO is actually just, it stands for Total Cost of Ownership, but that's actually for us just the name of one of the reports that we have available to you. Normally, we don't go too much into the reports because they're fairly boring. They're pretty simple. And a lot of times they're sort of self-explanatory. This one we do go into a little bit more because it's maybe a little more complicated because it helps us to assign costs to your fleet. So we like to sort of show it to you first. I think once it's shown, you sort of get the idea. Now, this particular one, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you sort of just one example. I'm going to create a scenario, and this may not even be a scenario that you would necessarily recreate, but it's going to help you to sort of see how it's quite a flexible report so that you can really sort of imagine it and then make it happen. So I'm going to have you browse into reports and choose TCO reports, and that's where the report resides. TCO report area. There we go. Now, there's two things that are always common on every report. We've sort of mentioned this before, but reports are always run on an account. You may notice that we're defaulting to the iGotDocs account. Well, that's probably not the account we want to run this on, so we're just going to use the drop-down. Now, there's only one requirement for this report, and that is that we need to run this report on an account that has at least 2 different audit dates. So as long as you've got 2, you're ready to go,
Okay.
or at least 2. I mean, you can have a lot more, but.
Okay. So it doesn't matter which one I choose?
No, as long as it's one you want to work with. All right, so Trojan Professional Services. Now, the other thing that's common on every report is that you always run a report on a time period. Now, that's true for the TCO too, but we actually take it a step further with the TCO. And with the TCO, we have what we call analysis periods. An analysis period is 2 things. It is that time period, but it's also the costs associated with that time period. So that's going to help us to sort of create more scenario-based situations so that we can actually save the costs and we can create different scenarios, different time periods, etc. Now, you've got an analysis period already, but I'm going to start my own. We're going to click on Add Edit Period, and that is going to do the easy part of this whole procedure. That's where we really assign the costs and assign the time frame and give it a name. So you'll notice first date, second date. First date defaults to the first audit that was done for the account. Second date defaults to the latest audit that was done for the account. Well, you can use those drop downs and you can switch it to any date range that you want. So go ahead and let's do like approximately a month. Can we do like 8/24? Is there one for 8/24?
Sure.
We'll do 8/24 to 9/24 because that's exactly a month. So next we get to give it a name, and technically the name is really just a text field, but I like to get you in the habit of naming them after the costs that we're going to be associating. So let me explain what I'm going to be doing. What I would like to do in my scenario is I would like to find out how much this customer would pay if they bought their toner cartridges from like an Office Max or an Office Depot or Staples or something like that. So I'm going to have you name this one National Average Toner Costs, and that, of course, is later on when we come in here, it'll be like, what's this? Oh, I know. You know, it's a little easier to know what you were doing. So, all right, we're ready. We're going to go ahead and click on Add Period, which adds the period. We can then click on Previous Page, which takes us to the previous page that we started at. I know, it's very technical. Now, go ahead and highlight your analysis period, because it is important that every time we work in the TCO that we always work with the analysis period. So when you highlight it, you may notice that, number one, the screen refreshes and changes. We see a summary over on the right-hand side, but actually more important to us is we also actually see some extra buttons that we didn't see beforehand. So that's actually something that's really important to keep in mind, is that you always have to actually work with an analysis period, whether it's a new one or an existing one. You have to highlight the one you're working with. Now, this one is telling us that we're working with 30 different devices, and we have our 4 categories listed underneath that. So these are categories: purchase, delivery, service, and consumables. Those are all the different things, and hopefully one of the costs that you're working with should fall under one of these categories, or even maybe multiple categories. Now, I'm actually just going to be focusing on just one of these categories today. I'm going to be focusing on consumable costs, because that's where the toner would reside, is under consumable cost items. It's important to know that you can actually use any combination of these 4 that you'd like. So maybe for you, you would actually maybe use all 4, and that's okay. But whatever we put into the analysis period is what is going to be part of our mathematical calculations in the end. So far everything's set to 0, and that would make sense because we didn't do anything yet. But we get to get our costs started by clicking on TCO data for the period. That's how the costs sort of start. Now, this is what's known as our simple mode page, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's really actually designed to sort of get those costs going in a quick way, maximum impact in the minimum amount of time. Probably not the smartest page because it's simple, but we also have the advanced mode, and the advanced mode allows us to be quite specific in our costing. So we're actually going to use a combination of both of those, the simple and the advanced mode, so that we can get our costs in. All right. Now we're going to, you may notice the 4 categories. We're going to focus on the last one, which is the consumable cost, but of course you can use any of the information from the consumable costs the same way in the other categories. All right. Now we're going to use values populated by the FM Audit side-by-side database today. It's a database that we at FM Audit maintain. It has a lot of different pieces of data in it. So for us, we're going to be using this as a great place to get our national average costing. We don't have everything in our database. It's just not possible for us to have every single device, but I mean, it's a great place to start, so we're going to use that today. Now, we also have 2 options underneath which are currently grayed out. These are called the supplier values and the dealer values. Now, these are only grayed out because this is actually a real personal area of the software. And by personal, I mean that you guys actually have an opportunity to create your own database of information.
Okay.
Dealer values are your costs. So, you know, whatever you charge the customer, obviously we don't know what you charge the customer. And there's, you know, everybody's different, so your pricing is different than others. Supplier values are suppliers that you might work with. So if you know, maybe worked with like LMI or Supplies Network, or I don't know who else there is, but there's lots of others, I'm sure. You can actually put all their pricing in, and you could say, in this scenario, I want to do LMI pricing. You can actually create a second analysis period and say, in this scenario, I want to do Supplies Network pricing. So you can actually sort of save that work. So again, this is grayed out because there's nothing in there right now, but as there is,
and you can have more than one, right?
More than one supplier. You can have more than one dealer, but you can have more than one supplier because you might work with lots of suppliers. That makes sense. Yeah. Now, you don't have anything in there right now, obviously, which is why they're grayed out. But as soon as you put just one piece of data in there, it actually will become enabled. If you click on Add Edit Values for either of them, you'll actually see a separate tab kind of come up. And this is now, and it's actually an area you don't have to go into the TCO to get to here. If you actually browse directly to the supplies area, you can actually come here, and this is where we would enter the pricing. Now, there's dealer values are your costs, supplier values are the people you work with. Most people do tend to import the values just because I think it's a little easier to do that. Now, if you wanted to create your thing from scratch, you can actually export the values template, and that actually brings up the like a blank Excel sheet, so that you can actually then use that Excel sheet to enter all the pricing. Sometimes it's a little easier to do in Excel than anything else. And also, as you know, once you've got it in Excel, I mean, you can then sort of just update the Excel sheet whenever a pricing changes and just re-import it back in. So sometimes that's a little easier to do, and people tend to use that quite a bit. So it's pretty popular. I don't think that, I mean, it's an investment in time to enter the pricing, but I don't think that anyone that has entered it that I've worked with has regretted. It's a great investment in time.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine.
All right, so we can close this tab. We'll be back at the TCO. One last thing needs to be done before we can move forward, and that is that we need to assign the toner coverage for the fleet. Now, of course, people traditionally use 5%. That's one of our choices. It's not the only one. We've got others. We can use the device or fleet average from the audit results for the selected period. You may be aware of this already, but FM Audit pulls exact toner coverage from certain HP business class devices, as well as some others now, which are reporting their toner coverage. If you have at least one of those devices as part of your fleet, you can use that as an average. You can have it averaged out so that it shows you all that data. Okay.
I'm sorry. What
Go
does
ahead,
toner
just select
coverage
it.
mean?
Some devices actually report their toner coverage. So go ahead and select that first option there, the use device or fleet average. It'll tell us if it's 0, as it is. You can see that you don't have any devices that are reporting their toner coverage.
Oh, okay.
But if you did, you might see 5% on black, maybe 6.2 on, you know, who knows? Maybe they use a lot of magenta toner, so it might be higher. And if you sort of had that idea, but maybe the devices didn't necessarily report that, we've got the last option, which is called Specify My Own. And when you select that option, you actually get a little CMYK bar so that you can you know, actually put what each of the colors are. So if you know they use more magenta toner, maybe you'd bump that one up to like 6 or 7%, or you know, whatever percentage you want.
Okay.
We're going to use 5% today just to kind of keep everything simple. We are ready. We're going to click on Apply to Period Devices.
Great.
Perfect. It's done. Well, we're going to go into the advanced mode now just so that we can confirm pricing, so that we can change anything that we don't agree with, or so we can enter any pricing that maybe did not get entered for us. Now, advanced mode is quite specific. So from this point forward, when we're dealing with the advanced mode, we are dealing with individual devices. So you may notice that manufacturer is listed as HP alphabetically. That's the first manufacturer that came up in this fleet. Actually, it looks like maybe it's the only manufacturer. The only manufacturer. And so alphabetically, a LaserJet 400 came up. Well, when you use the drop-down, you see any other devices that are part of this fleet. Some of these look like they're maybe newer devices. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So chances are, if it's a newer device, we might not have it in our database yet. But you know, you can switch. Let's switch to one of the other LaserJets just to show you how you can go to a specific device. See how we're switching now to this M401. Okay, and there's actually 16 of them. So let's enter the pricing for this one, because that's actually going to give us a pretty amazing, we only have to do the entering of the costs once, or the changing of the costs if that's the case. So let's keep scrolling down. You'll see your 4 categories, but they're a little bigger now. And that's because we aren't dealing with the entire fleet. We are now dealing with a specific. So it doesn't look like our pricing is in this particular device. So we're going to enter the pricing ourselves. So do you guys have any idea on what a toner would cost for this device?
Which one is it?
It was an M something. M401?
Let me look.
Sure.
Give me 1 minute.
No problem.
I'm trying to remember what that would be. 401. It's an 80X. Looks like we pay $80 a piece.
Okay. Any idea on how many pages that you get out of that? The yield?
It's
let's head on back to FMATA, or sorry, to the TCO. And we're going to enter that. Okay. The first field is going to be the yield field, so we're going to put the 6,900.
And that's under the
there we go.
consumable cost, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 6,900 is the yield on the black toner, and then the next field is 80.
Whoops.
Now, is that your cost, or is that what you charge the customer?
That's our cost.
Okay. So what do we want to
charge them anything?
All right. Well, let's put 80 then.
Okay.
And that's based on a 5% coverage, because HP always uses 5% for their yields.
Okay.
For their cartridges. So I just put 5. Now, is this a color device, or is this just a mono device?
That's a good question. I think it's actually mono device.
All right. Well, let's go save it then, because we don't need to enter color costs.
Okay.
So down at the bottom is a save values option, but there's also apply to like devices. And if we use apply to like devices, that actually saves it for all 16. So we just did a lot of work there without realizing it. Now, I kind of feel bad that there's none that we actually have the data already filled in for, but so you could actually, if it did fill in that information for us, we could change the pricing instead of adding it. We're adding it right now, but we also could have changed it.
Okay.
All right. Now, you can flip amongst individual devices at any point, of course, and you could, change whatever you wanted to, make sure that the pricing is exactly what you wanted it to be. But we're going to jump to the main page, and we're just going to run it the way it is, just to see what we got and get our numbers. All right, we're going to go use the what we call the breadcrumb menu at the top, which is that dark gray bar. It says, just click right on the word TCO report, and that'll actually sort of shortcut us right back to the page that we started on.
Great.
Okay, we're going to highlight the analysis period, and it refreshes. Now we're going to do the fleet overview. Now what's going to come up is our options page.
Okay.
Very similar to a lot of our other options pages. When you see available fields, they're available. When you see selected fields, that's what's going to show on the report. Anything you want to change, you can. We also have thresholds, which allow us to kind of visually flag with color certain pieces of information. So if it's above a threshold, it's going to be in red. If it's within the threshold, it'll be in green. And if it's below the threshold, we're going to be in blue. And we do have 3 categories. We have usage, we have toner coverage, and we have cost per page. Usage does the their actual usage compared to their manufacturer's recommended duty cycle. Toner coverage does their toner coverage. Cost per page, in our case, will be calculated for us. If we had put more than just toner cartridges in, we would use, obviously, whatever that was, but we're actually only going to be using toner coverage, or sorry, we're only going to be using toner today, so that's the only thing that's going to use for that calculation. So it's going to be a little bit of a smaller number than maybe an actual cost per page, but let's go ahead and generate the report by clicking on the Generate Report button. All right, it's doing some math for us, and some of that math includes things like the pages, how many pages it did during that time period. Some devices are obviously used a little more than others. But then we have a color cost per page if it's a color device. Most of these, it looks like, aren't. If it's a mono page, we see a mono CPP, and then how much it costs to run during that time period. So obviously the higher the volume, the more it's going to cost to run. If you keep scrolling over to the far right, the last one is called the warnings column. You can see that some of them
Okay.
look free, but they're not really. If you click on the, see that it says missing black cartridge cost or yield. When you do that, it actually brings up the advanced mode for that particular device. This is a LaserJet M455. It's telling us, it's listing it as free because there's no pricing in there. If now we can go down and we could enter the pricing, and then of course the next time we generated the report, it would be a part of the report. So yeah, you can fill in whatever holes you want to. We don't have to do that today though. We're just going to close the page. It's actually its own tab, so. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Back over to the far left and scroll down a little bit more, and you'll see a summary telling us, I know this is all HP, so it's probably not that exciting, but 30 HPs are part of this fleet. 63,000 pages during the time period, which was actually a month, so 63,000 a month. An average cost per page, again, at this point, it's probably not that accurate because we do have a lot of free devices, but it did take that average. And then if we took this information out over at 1 year, it would be $3,100, and then over 5 years, that's $15,000. And of course, after you fill it in, I would expect that number to go up a little bit more because first of all, we just put in toners, but not even for all the devices did we put that cost in.
Makes sense.
Now, most people will use this information not necessarily on the page that it's on. Most people would export the data. And there is a couple of different exports listed at the bottom. Probably the most popular is the export as the full XLS, which is the full Excel file. When you get that, you get the information that's in front of you, but you also get some tabs along the bottom which show you the highest utilized devices, the lowest utilized devices, the highest cost per pages, and the lowest cost per pages. So there's some neat little tabs on that bottom. But once it's in Excel, it's yours. I mean, you could hide things, move it around, put your logo on it, export it again. I mean, I don't know what else there is to do with it, but, like I said, you can't really change the data once it's on this page. You can, of course, change the things that made it, on this page, but, you can always, change it in Excel.
Okay.
That's it. That's the stuff that I needed to show you guys today. So.
Okay. Could you just tell me again how I put in what we charge our customers for cost per page?
Sure. Do you have an assigned cost per page?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then that's actually let's jump back to the main TCO report page with that. Yeah, we're going to make a new analysis period because we don't want to touch what we did. This is a great example of how we're going to do something entirely different. So we're going to add the period. I'm going to compare it to the same time period, so let's leave that, and let's put cost per page or CPP or something like that for the name so that we know what we're dealing with.
Should I just take up this out?
Yeah, and then go ahead and add that period. Yeah, at the bottom with the add period.
You want to just keep it the same?
Yeah, let's leave the date range the same. Just, we could change it, but we don't have to. All right, now go back to the previous page. Remember to highlight your analysis period. And now we're going to click on TCO data for the period. Now, a cost per page is, for whatever reason, under the purchase cost. So you see the third option down, which is called Site is on a cost per page program. Let me specify the rate. We have both a mono cost per page and a color cost per page. So what is your mono cost per page?
Let me look it up. See, where to find it. Here somewhere. Where is that? Shoot, I don't know what happened to it. Well, can we just use maybe...
Use whatever you want.
I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't remember, honestly, what they are using.
Let's say like 4.5. Does that sound high or low?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay, let's put it. Do you think they do color cost per page, or I think these were mostly mono devices anyway, but
yeah, they do.
Okay, what's the color cost per page?
It's probably like twice that.
Okay.
Maybe $1. I don't know.
Sure, sounds good. Let's use it. All right, head on down to the bottom. Apply to period devices. Now, it's done it. It's done what we've asked. Now, if we wanted to, let's say that some devices were maybe less expensive of a cost per page than others, we could go into the advanced mode and tweak the individual devices, but I mean, we don't really have to do that. So let's go back and let's run it based on that.
So go previous page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now remember to highlight the analysis period that we're working with, and then you can do the fleet overview.
Great. And then generate report.
That's right. So entirely different math this time, but.
I have a quick question, actually. We actually allow our customers to go up to a certain point, and then once that's over that, we charge, overages, basically. How would you put that in there? Would that be an advanced option, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I think you could do that in Excel. But I'm not sure that and then just put an extra column in and subtract, like,
Got it. That makes sense.
They get per.
Okay.
And anything above that, I think, would be considered an overage. So any questions that you guys have for me?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there any questions that you guys have about anything that we've done, or?
I don't. Do you have any, Diana?
No, I don't.
Great. All right. Well, that was what I had for you today. So
Great.
That was it. All right, guys. Well, then I guess I'm going to let you go for the day. I want to say thank you, and I guess I'll be talking with you again soon.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks a lot, Christy. Okay, no problem, Diana.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.